I'm Joseph Peroni from the Rise Above Project, and this is special guest star Nelson. Do you want to stay? Maybe not. Okay, so today is going to be a continuation of the last two shows that I did on learned helplessness and the victim mentality. But today I want to be a little bit more specific on how to identify victim mentality language. And I want to start with this, orange juice theory. Now what is that? If you took an orange and you squeeze it and you put pressure on it, the only thing that could come out of it would be orange juice. It makes sense. And people that see themselves as victims in this world, if you really pay attention to what they say, most of what's going to come out of them is the obvious. It's victim language. So we need to be able to know what that is so we can figure out what they are actually saying and maybe what type of person that they might be. It also works for ourselves as well. Because if we have a thought process where we're kind of thinking that in a victim way, we want to be able to be aware of that, number one, and number two, to be able to challenge those thoughts before those thoughts leave our lips and get out into the universe. So let's talk about three aspects to identify learned helplessness or the victim mentality. Number one, negations. This is when people speak about what isn't, what wasn't, and what they believe won't be in the future. And they tend to do this by talking about negative things in the past, the present, and again, in the future. People like this tend to have this way of every situation finding the problem in it. Or in every solution, they still find negativity and a problem in it. They do tend to focus on what they can't do, what others did not do for them in their life, what people did do for them in their life but didn't come out well. So they don't take full responsibility, but they do tend to blame other people. And they have a long list of things that they don't like and don't want. And typically in that list of don't like things, they include themselves in this. Now, if you're a helpful kind of person, you might see a person like this and you want to help them. But then they move into the yes, but stage. For example, if somebody is desiring to lose weight, and you might say to them, well, maybe you can join a gym. And they'll say, yes, but gyms cost money, and I don't want to do that. You could say, well, have you considered maybe taking out some of the sugar in your diet? And they'll say, yes, but I really like the sugar in my diet. So you can do this back and forth trying to help a person like this. But typically what will happen is they're the victim, you're the rescuer. And eventually, if you keep trying to help them, they're actually going to be angry at you. And they're going to actually make you like you're some type of perpetrator. So this is basic victim-perpetrator dynamics that happens on many different levels. So let's talk about projections, which is another way of victim mentality language. A projection by definition is when people blame others for qualities that they deny in themselves. And you'll see this when people are critical of people's appearance, their personality, or their success. For example, somebody might say or make fun of someone who's thin, lean, or let's just say skinny. And it doesn't mean that they don't like that look. They're denying this thought inside themselves that they would like to be lean, but maybe they haven't done the work to get there. So instead of building themselves up, they try to tear other people down. And this works in when people talk about they're critical of people's appearance, their success. It could be anything. It could even be personality. If somebody makes fun of somebody for being maybe too open, gregarious, extroverted, maybe this is the type of person that would like to have those qualities. But being that they don't, instead of trying to improve maybe their social anxiety, what they do is they make fun of other people. One of the interesting things about projections is we see this all the time. Like let's take a look at homophobia, for example. Now, why would anybody care how somebody loved another human being or who they decided to love? You know, on the surface, it doesn't make sense. Why would somebody make fun of somebody for that? And it's possible that a person who is homophobic, they might be same-sex curious, they might want to have a same-sex relationship, but something in them or in their society, their culture, their family made them think that it was taboo or wrong. So what they do is they take out that anger and make fun of other people. And you see this a lot. Interestingly enough, gay porn is most popular in the Bible Belt states in America. And the #1 state for gay porn is Utah, which would go against everything that most people would think. Another type of projection is when people have an excess fear or excess insecurities about their partners having an affair. Now this happens a lot too, but what is the projection there? Well, it could be that this person or people are uncomfortable with their own attraction to other people, because somewhere along the line, they may have thought that having an attraction to other people when you're in a relationship is a wrong thing. Now, not to be judgmental, but just as a basic statement, everybody is attracted to something. It doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or not, but if you buy into that, it would increase your insecurity if you believe that attraction to other people is wrong in some way. So projections, it's typically a way for people to not take responsibility for their own mental health. Now here's some more examples of projections. Someone will say, you make me angry, or you make me feel bad about myself. Now that's an impossibility, because nobody is in control of your emotions and feelings. You are. And I'll give you an example of that. If somebody says something to me or to anybody, and it's a put down, if you somewhat agree with that put down, then it could make you angry. Like if somebody said, listen, Joe, I don't like that purple mohawk hairstyle you have. Well, I don't have a purple mohawk, so it doesn't mean anything to me. In the same sense, they could say, listen, I think you're the world's worst trainer, and I think you're the world's worst therapist. Well, being that I don't believe that, I can feel bad or sorry that they feel that way, but I don't feel that way about myself, so how could it make me angry? It would only make me angry if I thought that they were saying something that was true and that I was denying in myself, and then it's possible that they could, I could make myself angry. So other people don't make you angry. As a matter of fact, if you had the power to change somebody's feelings and emotions, wouldn't you want to make them feel happy or great? Then life would be easy, right? Relationships would be super easy. But they're not, because you can't make people happy. Why can't you? Well, because being happy or being even depressed, these are inside jobs. These are within ourselves. Other people are not responsible for us being depressed or being happy. So let me talk about the third aspect of victim mentality language, and it's called soft language. And you see this a lot too, and you see it so much it's hard to identify. People talk about things such as, I guess, they don't know. There's a good one. When somebody does something and you ask them why and they go, I don't know, well, they had many decisions to make. They do know. They just don't want to be held responsible for anything. So they say, I guess, I don't know, maybe, sometimes, whenever, when I get around to it. Right, and this type of language is so soft. What it breeds is, it breeds apathy, number one, and procrastination, because there's no actual intensity to do anything. There's no intention of getting to a goal or to achieve anything. And it creates anxiety in that person too, because they're just a ship in the middle of nowhere with no destination. And it creates anxiety in everybody else, because the language is so soft that these people can't really be trusted to do necessarily anything because they don't stand for anything. So again, it's part of the victim mentality language is that it's a complete denial of responsibility, and they deny their own agency. And people can feel this when they're around them. So how do we fix this? Well, the first part to fix it is some of the things I've talked about and some of the words that I've used and phrases. As soon as you hear those, you need the awareness to know that that's coming from a victim type of situation. And as soon as we can recognize it, we can thought stop it and change to a different, more empowering thought. It seems really easy. You would think it would be, but it's not that easy to do, because we have these grooves where if we continuously say the words, I can't, or maybe I'll get around to it, we'll see. Words like this are so often used in our culture that we don't really pick up and recognize the fact of how dangerous and disempowering they are. So the next part to improve on this and to fix it, I would reverse all denial of responsibility and do what I like to call radical responsibility, meaning that you take complete control and responsibility for your behaviors and for your actions, but even more so for your thoughts and feelings as well, which this gets to be very tough now. Most people can't do this. And when I'm talking about radical responsibility, I'm talking about being responsible for things that don't even seem like you have anything to do with anything here, that just seems totally unrelated to you. I'll give you an example of that. When I was about 15 years old, I was outside a library, but it was off the main road. And it was about somewhere between 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And as what would happen, about 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, you're out on the main road, a car full of drunk guys came by trying to test their masculinity. So we ended up getting into a fight. And we weren't doing anything, we're outside a library. We're probably talking about who was the better guitar player, Eddie Van Halen or Ted Nugent at the time. So we got into a fight. That was on Saturday. On Sunday, when I saw my father, because I saw my father every Sunday, I told him about the fight. And he immediately said, well, listen, it's your fault. And I thought, well, what are you talking about? You know, it doesn't make any sense to me. That how could it be my fault? And he already, in a way, which I thought he was a jerk at the time, but he's 100% correct, is what are you doing out on a Saturday night, close to 2 o'clock in the morning, out on the main road for everybody to see you? I mean, who's going to be driving by at that time? Drunk people. Nothing good happens after midnight, my father would say. And he was right. So much of that responsibility for that, even though it seemed like I had nothing to do with it, I should have been home by midnight, just like my mother told me to be, but I wasn't. So I was out. And so that causes a problem. So again, radical responsibility. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and I did have control over that. So that's my fault. Now, when we try to take a person who has this victim mentality language, there's a very heavy correlation between that and depression. So if we have a lot of negative thoughts, obviously it's going to change the neurochemicals in your brain, it's going to change your actions, so you can become depressed. So how do we change that? Part of what I just said before, we get aware of it, and we thought stop, and we put in different thoughts to change that. Now, the interesting part here is a lot of depressed people will say, that's impossible, you can't do that. It just doesn't work like that. You just can't change your mind that way. And then I thought of something that a lot of therapists don't want to talk about. And I actually considered not even saying this on the video today because it sounds a little strange, and I'm not here to offend anybody. But let's be honest about this. There is a very heavy correlation to depression. And I'm not talking about that real bad depression where somebody can't get up out of bed in the morning, right? I'm not talking about that kind of depression. I'm talking about that type of depression where somebody doesn't know what's going on in their life, they don't find meaning and purpose, they're playing a lot of video games all day, they're afraid to talk to people, they're withdrawn from people, and they just don't have that oomph in their step. There's a big, heavy correlation between that and masturbation. Now, this is what I'm saying. If a person who is depressed has a victim mentality language, how can you make that step to masturbation? Well, listen, let's be honest, nobody's masturbating to, I hate my life, my father screwed me over, I owe $1 million in back taxes, there's people dying in the streets, nobody's talking about it. That's not what you masturbate to. You change your thoughts, and this is exactly what I said. So if you change your thoughts, what kind of thoughts does a person have when they're trying to masturbate? Obviously, they're thoughts to arouse and to excite. So if you can do that to get off sexually, why can you not do that to get off the couch, to find a job, to improve a skill, to be better in a relationship, to be better at school? You can. So what I'm saying is victim mentality language is a choice. And if somebody says they can't make that move from A to B, I'm going to say, well, how do you masturbate? How is that possible? Because you definitely can. Again, the correlation between depression and masturbation, there's a very heavy correlation. So I hope you found this show to be interesting and helpful. I am Joe Peroni from the Rise Above Project. And if you like the show, please subscribe. And even better, I think I have 265 subscribers. I could use more. So please tell a friend. Thank you.